or associates.
Welcome to Inspiring Hope with Lois Herman, a leading expert in professional coaching, clinical hypnosis, and energy clearing. Lois is an award-winning author of Chronicles of Hope. She has decades of experience in advanced hypnosis techniques, has conducted highly effective success coaching programs that have helped clients discover ways to achieve success, empower themselves, their families, as well as holistic practitioners to expand their practices. Get ready to be empowered with your host, Lois Herman.
And happy holidays. I want to ask you a question. What are miracles and where do we find them? We often define miracles as unexplainable events that occur beyond our everyday sense of awareness. In today's show, we'll discuss the miracle of forgiveness and how we can find peace as 2020 closes. With all we've been through this year, as we look beyond the illusion of darkness for the light of truth and embrace the energy of forgiveness, we embark on a new era of peace. In today's show, I'll be joined by an amazing fellow hypnotist and shamanic practitioner who has many powerful miracle stories. Lisa Schermerhorn will share her insights on what we can do to prepare for this next period of time as we transition into this new awakened Age of Aquarius. And for those of you on YouTube, please help me get these messages out to the world by liking and sharing our videos and subscribing to our YouTube channel. Be sure to click that bell to be reminded when we add new shows each week. And so where do we find miracles this year? If we look for miracles outside of ourselves as external influences that impact our lives in mysterious ways, then couldn't we describe the 2020 COVID situation as a miracle? This life-changing disease, whatever it was intended to be, brought our country and the world to its knees, literally and figuratively. Humanity has seen much in the way of sickness, fear, isolation, business shutdowns, financial strain, political unrest, deception exposure, and for many, a great awakening. Through this year of crazy uncertainty, many are waking up to observe the reality beyond the illusion we've been living in for generations. People are waking to see with their own eyes what is real, and are amazed, or shall I say dismayed, to discover things beyond our comprehension. Many are awakening to the miracle of the Christ light within our hearts that shines the way for hope, peace, and love. You are listening to Inspiring Hope with Lois Herman at WSMN 1590 AM and 95.3 FM. And in truth, the miracle always comes from within. The awareness of everyday miracles allows us to connect more strongly with the unseen, all-knowing, and powerful energy of the positive. We have amazing guides who encourage us to trust our intuition and inspire us to believe what is truly real. Many are awakening to see beyond the illusion that has had our eyes clouded over the millennia. We've come to know beyond a shadow of a doubt who and what are real versus false. Over time, others will slowly awaken to the truth and may go through a period of incredulous shock as what they discover when their eyes are opened in this period of great awakening. We're especially blessed at this moment in time with the celestial miracles that have been surrounding us. For instance, the great star that shines its bright light on us at this critical juncture in our evolution. This amazing star that appeared at our winter solstice last week is a significant phenomenon that's been here only a few times before in recorded history. The last time Jupiter and Saturn were in conjunction, creating this bright star, was over 800 years ago. This cosmic event shook humanity out of the dark ages and ushered in a new era of enlightenment, stimulating the Great Renaissance. Before that, this celestial event was known as the Bethlehem Star, that the Magi followed when Jesus was born 2,000 years ago. At that time, there was much unrest in the world, similar to what we're experiencing now. Jesus came to awaken people to the truth in a secular way, yet became the sacrificial lamb used by the elite as a symbol to control the people. Having been a student of a facilitator for A Course in Miracles for over 3 decades, I've learned to look beyond the illusion portrayed by what our physical eyes see and pay attention to the knowing seen through our spiritual or third eye. Humanity is starting to awaken from the third-dimensional consciousness found in the age of Pisces, where the little fish is eaten by the bigger fish is eaten by the biggest fish. These big fish have been feeding on the little fish for centuries. We are now moving into the long-awaited Age of Aquarius that ushers in this fifth-dimensional consciousness, the age of truth, exposing falsehoods and celebrating integrity with peace for mankind. There are many on the awakened 5D journey who can see beyond the illusion painted by the long-standing elite leaders who have been truly leading humans like lambs to the slaughter. For those who are still asleep, our goal is to gently wake them from their slumber of denial. We must all pay closer attention to what is really going on around us. Read and listen beyond what is being programmed by the controlling media. Discern for yourself what is truth. Look beyond the illusion of what you have been taught to believe. Notice who is doing good things for others, those who are coming from the heart, and support them on this important mission to save humanity. You are listening to Inspiring Hope with Lois Herman at WSMN 1590 and 95.3 FM. And I'm delighted today to introduce an amazing holistic practitioner who's been on her own journey of awakening and now helps others during this time of transition and new beginnings. I'd like to welcome Lisa Schermerhorn, master hypnotist, master NLP practitioner, energy medicine practitioner, shamanic practitioner, and so much more. Dear friend and sister on this journey. Hi, Lisa, are you there?
Yes, I am, and what a beautiful introduction. All of the things that you said this morning are you just cracked my heart open.
Oh,
so
wonderful.
Beautiful.
Well, thank you. And you and I have touched our hearts in many ways. We were born on the same day. We are truly soul sisters, a couple years apart. But so tell us a little bit about yourself in your own words, Lisa. Tell us about who you are and a little about your journey.
Oh, boy, it's a long story. I will try and cut it a bit shorter. But about 20 years ago, I began this spiritual journey. I had some trauma come up from my childhood that I was going through from therapist to therapist, and no one was able to help me. And I finally I met a hypnotist who was able to start helping me get some relief. And I thought she was so amazing that I wanted to be just like her. And so I trained with everyone who she trained with. And then I realized that I couldn't be her. I had to figure out who I was.
That's right. Yes.
So I began studying, energy medicine and all of these things. I didn't really seek out; they found me, and that's been, fascinating part about my life is how the synchronicities that always keep showing up. It's like when you look for it, it's the seeds that you follow, the breadcrumbs, and I've just been on this amazing journey of learning to surrender and forgive and trust, not only others, but for myself. And you spoke of that so beautifully about the journey of forgiveness, which is one of the most powerful things you can do.
It is, and
it does create
one of the
miracles.
hardest things to do is to forgive yourself. You're exactly right. Many people talk about forgiving others, but then we have to go in and forgive ourselves for going through what we've been through, putting ourselves in those situations. And that's the
Right.
deepest level of forgiving it away. I say, I just want to give this away. I don't want to carry this anymore. It's gone, poof. And then that allows us to elevate our consciousness.
It does. So one of the things that I specialize in is in the unconscious mind. And what people don't realize is that we store so much. It's that hamster wheel that we keep getting on over and over and over again and expecting a different result.
Mm-hmm.
So from birth until our late teens, early 20s, we literally become programmed because our brain is different. It's in different frequencies as we are growing up. So every single thing that is taught us gets programmed at a very deep level. Any trauma, our teachers, our parents, and all of this can be so subtle that we don't even know. But that little girl or that little boy, that little voice that's inside of us always wins. So when that voice is wounded and that runs us in a place of scarcity, that's how we get a lens of how we see the world. If our parents were always putting into our thoughts and our minds that, money doesn't grow on trees, or, I don't have enough money to pay my bills, and we grow up with that, we see the world through that lens.
Absolutely, and they're basically painting the world through the lens that they grew up. So it's as they say, the sins of the fathers, but it's just basically patterns that are replayed over and over and over, and it takes a lot of effort to change the pattern.
Oh, it's huge, because here's the tricky part, and this is something that people, when they start to shift and change their own belief systems, it affects their tribe,
mm-hmm.
the people who they grew up with. Because, well, wait a minute, if you're shining the light on this and you're suddenly changing the way you think and you believe, then the people who I grew up with now start to doubt their belief system. And if they're not ready to shift, it's a very painful process. It can be enlightening, but it can be very hard to break away from those belief systems.
Exactly, and oftentimes when we go back into that old paradigm, or that old environment with our new paradigm, those people want to kind of put you back in that shoebox that just doesn't fit anymore, and it takes courage and strength to shift out of it. We go back into it, then we feel icky. It doesn't feel right because that's not our authentic self. So there's this whole. It's not a straight shot up. It's the sine wave of dipping back down into that sadness, pain, and then, okay, what do I need to do to shift it now? And it's a evolution.
Yes, and it's the fear of the fear, which is the hardest part.
Yes.
Because once you move through it and go into that other side, you see the brilliance and the gift of it. But I remember my entire life, I had this tremendous fear of being alone.
Mm.
I was terrified to be alone. And then all of a sudden, I came upon a situation in my life after a 30-year marriage of having to be alone. And God always puts us where we need to be, on the side of a mountain in Vermont by ourselves, can't even see our neighbors, that kind of alone.
Yeah, you are very alone. I've seen your beautiful, beautiful spot up there, and you're right. You are very much alone, isolated in a way.
Yes, but what I've discovered through this process is that I have never felt so loved and such community, and that even though I could physically be alone, I know that I'm not alone.
Absolutely.
And that's a place that has taken a lifetime to get there. This was not an easy journey. And that's what I always want to say to people is, you get there when it's your time, when it's ready. It's like I prayed to get to this point my whole life. And then I had to do the work to get there. It wasn't like snapping your finger. I had to let go of old beliefs, old paradigms, old, relationships, in order to really be fully at peace.
And as you let go of old relationships, it's one of those concepts of closing a window and then another door will open to newer and different relationships that are healthier based on your new mindset, your new energy. And we're talking really about the concept of growing from the 3D into the 5D awareness. Would you not agree?
Absolutely. And going back to, the topic of what we are here to talk about is the act of forgiveness is one of the greatest things that you can do for yourself is forgive yourself. Because there's a miracle that happens. And what I mean by that is when we grow up beating ourselves up and feeling guilt and feeling shame, those are toxic belief systems that can physically make us sick. And they don't serve anyone or anything because it's in the past. And so what I always do is I look at what has happened in my life as a gift. What are the lessons that I just learned from this person, this circumstance? And that's also brought me to this past year of 2020. And look, I'm very fortunate that I haven't had to, I have struggled in many ways this past year on a lot of things. But there are a lot of things that has a lot of ways that has opened doors for me. That I was always in my car, running, going here, going there, always had to be out with friends, never wanted to sit with myself. I was running from myself. And this now, since March, has forced me to sit. And to be in nature and go on walks and really reflect on the things about myself that I really struggled with, and having to let go and accepting those parts of ourselves, because self-love isn't just giving yourself a pat on the back and saying, repeating, I love myself, I love myself. It's about loving all of ourselves, the good, the bad, the ugly, the things that brought us to our knees, the things that we don't like about ourselves, and then embracing and loving that because that's brought us to who we are today.
It's all a teaching and a learning. And when we get that learning and acknowledge it, then we can move beyond it. And then we sometimes find ourselves dipping back into it. It's just part of that evolutionary process of growing into who we really are already. We just have to remember that. And part of the forgiveness, the act of forgiveness, is remembering why we had to go through those different challenges, because they were, to me, it's kind of like the school of life. All these different things that we have been through have been lessons that have allowed us to grow. If we stay stuck in the woulda, shoulda, couldas and self-blame, we haven't learned the lesson. We need to, as you say, get into the silence, into the quiet, to truly look at, okay, what is this triggering in me? What do I need to learn? What do I need to do differently? And then when we make those conscious choices, then that is a signal of our own personal growth. And that's what this is all about.
And a lot of the misconception that people have about forgiveness is that it's not saying what someone did is okay. It's not saying, oh, okay, you just whacked me, I'm going to come back for more, and get whacked again and come back for more. That's not what it's about. You can forgive someone without them even knowing it.
Exactly.
You can let go because it's a backpack full of bowling balls. Walking around and it's a heavy burden. It's exhausting. It creates physical ailments. It creates anxiety. It creates so much unwanted things in our life. When we put that down and walk away from it and just go into a place of neutrality, like I bless those things in my life now. Yes, does it hurt that I went through a horrible divorce? Yes, it does. Are there things that I've been angry about that I wish could have been different on my end as well as my ex's? Absolutely. But when I went to my heart and said, who is this person? What did they teach me? What are the gifts they gave me in my life? And I turned it around And also, when we are triggered by someone or something, it's about that thing inside of us that we don't own, that we dislike in ourselves. And when we learn to forgive ourselves and we can go into a place of neutrality, then we can see it for what it truly is without the emotion, and not, that's what Buddha talks about.
Yes.
Is being in that place of neutrality where you can be an observer.
Exactly.
Because when we get to this place of, the word escapes me, the duality of the people who are struggling right now with extremes of thoughts and beliefs of what's going on in the world right now. And the thing is that we all want the same thing. We all want peace. We all want love. We all want the beauty, and we all want abundance for each other. And the thing is that it's the programming that causes us to see the world through different lenses. And it's so interesting because if you take those lenses away, just like the different faiths and religions that all promote love, they all promote harmony in the basis of all the Judeo-Christian religions.
And even
Buddhism.
other beyond that, the basis of all religion is a foundation of belonging and love and something beyond self. And that's it's a connection, it's a togetherness, and that is tapping in. Even the Native American culture, the energy is of honoring and respecting each other and our the great beyond. So there is such a commonality, and I just wanted to remind our listeners that you're listening to Inspiring Hope with Lois Herman at WSMN 1590 AM and 95.3 FM. We're here every Sunday morning, and I love to celebrate amazing people that I've met on my journey. And today we're speaking with Lisa Schermerhorn, and we're talking about the miracle of forgiveness and how we can relate that to what's going on as this year closes, the year 2020. Everybody's, bemoaning this year, and yet I've heard so many people talk about how they've grown through this year. And it's exactly what you're speaking about. It's caused us to really go inside and pull out those last vestiges of pain that we can really look at. And as we're talking about forgiveness, many times I've said it's like, forgive it away. I do not want to carry this. Forgiveness is not for the other person because that's their karma. What they have to do with the situation is on their shoulders. But what do I want to carry? Why do I want to carry that anger, that guilt, that shame, that blame, any of that stuff? It doesn't serve me. So as I give it away, like you said with the bowling balls, I want to just drop them, give it away. And that frees me to celebrate me. And yet, having come through some pretty intense relationships myself, especially one that was extremely abusive, forgiving does not mean going back into that situation and allowing it. It is about turning the other cheek and walking away. And should you have to come back into that situation, you come back with a new awareness, a protection of that little girl, a protection of that inner self, with a new open-eyed awareness so that you can be more mindful of dealing with people who can be destructive.
I have a perfect example of something that happened to me very recently, and it was a great teaching moment for myself as I went through this process. I live on the side of a mountain with 18 acres, and I've subdivided 8 of the acres. And the 8 acres are below me, so it's a separate road to go in. And so the road isn't officially a road, it's grass. And in order to get to my property, I have to go by my neighbor's house. And they have been there alone for all of these years, never having traffic. And so as the trucks went through to clear out some of the trees, and as the realtors have gone through, it's created divots and tracks in what, was very pristine land, driving, because it was very muddy. and I received a really toxic email from actually their daughter that was very hurtful to me. And I sat with that, and I could have reacted in a dark way, but I decided to come from a place of love and forgiveness instead. Mm-hmm. And instead of reacting to the daughter, I went to the mother and I said, I have loved being your neighbor for 20 years. I imagine that this must be very difficult for you. And I ask that in the future, if you have any issues, please come to me, because there are things that we could do to work out together, because we want a common goal. We are neighbors and we care for each other, and I want to make this right for you. And whenever you've asked me, I've always accommodated you. And she immediately called me. We had a beautiful conversation, and then it was left. And then the other day I was walking my dog, and she and her husband drove by, and we stopped and we spoke, and she blew me a kiss and said, Merry Christmas. I could have created a very toxic, volatile situation and exploded it, and we could have become enemies. Mm-hmm. But from the place of compassion, forgiveness, and love, I was able to salvage that relationship.
Beautiful. And it took that mindfulness. It took that sometimes our instinctive immediate response is the one that's that defensive response. So coming from that place of reflection, pause, and then respond instead of react. Respond with that forgiveness. That's beautiful. And you're exactly right. The other piece of that is that sometimes the written word does not express the same as when you actually have a conversation with someone, with the tonality in the voice, with the intention that comes through. You and I are both NLP masters, so we know how one sentence, whether it's said or in with different intonations, can mean something completely different. So when you're actually having a conversation with someone, it changes how things are interpreted.
Now I want to say that the story sounds beautiful, but it took me 50 blah, blah, blah years to get there. I don't want to give quite away my age, but this was a journey. Mm-hmm. You cannot expect to get there right away. It's been 20 years of study, of intense work on myself, and getting to the point of being on my knees. And you know, what is called the dark night of the soul, of going, you know, when you bottom out and you're like, please God, I can't take this anymore. Mm-hmm. Because we hold on to those old ways to such a point that's so toxic, because we don't know anything else, and it's too scary to try a different way. And one of the things that I love that I do is I see things. I'm an out of the box thinker, and I love thinking about new ways of seeing things, and I reframe everything in a different way so I can always try and see the positive in it. What's the gift this gave me? What's the lesson? And when I can sit in that, what is this person teaching me, so that I can go into a place of gratitude instead of that reaction. And one of the greatest gifts, you know, you talk about how you've been involved in the Course of Miracles, and you and I had actually bonded on that a number of years ago. I went through a very difficult time in my life, and the Course of Miracles really helped me. And then I found something called the Ho'oponopono, which is an ancient Hawaiian prayer of forgiveness.
Yes.
And it is truly, truly magic. If I can give the listeners here one gem of wisdom to look at, Joe Vitale wrote a book about it, but to give a quick synopsis, there was a prison. This is a true story. There was a prison in Hawaii that had a section of it for the criminally insane. And it was so bad that the attrition of the workers was just, they couldn't keep people there. They couldn't keep prison guards. The therapists there couldn't stay. And finally, they were desperate because legally they had to have a psychologist or a counselor on staff. So they found this fellow, Dr. Hewlin, and they asked him if he would come and work for them. And he said, yes, on the condition that I don't see any patients and only get their folder, their life, their oh my gosh, I'm drawing a blank.
Their life
but
story,
anyway,
their background, yes.
Their background, their history. So what he would do is, they thought he was crazy, but they were desperate. They hired him. So he would take, one by one their folders and go through and pray over each one and say this prayer. And one by one, the whole place started to clear out. They were either reintroduced to the prison system or put into a mental health facility, but it got to a point where there was no one left. They had to close down that wing.
Wow.
And so Joe Vitale met with him and said, please teach me, what is it that you did? What is this that happened? And it's a simple prayer of 5 lines, and it's about forgiving the part of yourself. We have all of this in us. We have the good, the bad, the ugly. Carolyn Mace talks about how do not condemn someone that steals a car or robs a bank or kills someone because you have not walked in their shoes.
You don't know what's
really going on. You have not lived. You do not know how desperate that person is and what pain they're in, that if you had stepped in their shoes, walked in their shoes, that you might have done the exact same thing. So do not judge. So we all have all of this. That's why we are all one. And so when you forgive that part of ourselves, it releases the other people in your life.
And that's what the Course in Miracles is all about. It's a study in forgiveness, in the study of at-one-ment, that we are all one. And then when we can look beyond the illusion of the play that is being played out with our physical eyes, and we can look beyond to see what's truly going on in the hearts and spirits of others, then we will see with new eyes. And part of what you're talking about is setting up a practice, a spiritual practice. I often encourage people to choose a spiritual, something that really resonates with them. The Ho'oponopono is a wonderful prayer that many relate to, and there are others as well that if you use it and practice it every day, that's the secret. It's about shifting your energy, and as you shift your energy and elevate your frequency, your vibrational rate, then you interact with and you relate and you have the ability to shift others as well. So that's a beautiful story, beautiful story. And what we need to do is encourage people to focus on the good in their life, forgive, learn from the lessons that we've had to experience, that we've chosen to experience, and move into a higher level of awareness. So, Lisa, you and I have spoken about this whole concept of moving from the 3D into the 5D consciousness. And we also spoke about the concept of shifting from the age of Pisces into the age of Aquarius, and then you also know about the other shifting even in the year. So there's multiple different shifts that are happening right now. So shifting from the Earth year into a water year, is that right?
Yes. So what's interesting, actually, before we go on, I just want to give people the Ho'oponopono prayer very quickly, because it's 5 quick lines.
So let's everybody just take a minute.
Repeat.
Yes, if we'll just stop for a minute, take
or
a breath.
Or they could also Google this or, research it. It's out there, and there's a lot of YouTube videos about it. But it's, I love you. I'm sorry. Please forgive me. And thank you. And then there's a 5th line that was added. I'm not quite sure where it's from, but it sounds funny to say and hear. It's I forgives myself. And what that means is God, or the great I am, forgives me. And so if you pray on those words and say them over and over again, you will feel lighter, you will feel a sense of peace, and the people in your life will shift around you.
Absolutely.
They
That's
will
beautiful.
shift.
Thank you.
So,
Thank you, Lisa.
Yes. So the other thing is I studied a form of shamanism. It's a West African form of shamanism by Malidoma Somé. And Malidoma Somé was living in a tribe in West Africa, and some missionaries literally took him as a child and brought him to Western culture. And he ended up, I think he's got 2 master's degrees, and so what's interesting about him, I think in Boston, he went to school in Boston, but he walks both worlds. So he understands the Western mentality and how we live, and he teaches and integrates that, his ways. And one of the fundamental parts of his belief system of the Dagara tribe, Dagara, this is all based on the book The Healing Wisdom of Africa, is that the last digit of your birth year or the last digit of your year that you're coming into has a significant rhythm to it. There's something that's based on it within nature. So if the last digit of the year of your birth year ends in a 0 or a 5, you are an earth person. And earth embodies the caretaker. They represent nourishment, support, comfort, empowerment. They are the lover of the earth and the world. But in shadow, because everything has a duality in life, earth can be in crisis, homeless, or in exile. It's the person who's lost their grounding. They feel empty, alone, confused, and may suffer from invisibility and anonymity. So we're coming out of the year of 2020, and that's the year of crisis. It's a year of feeling homeless, like I don't belong. I don't understand what's going on in this world. Everything has shifted. The rug has been pulled out from under us. Everything that as we've known it is no longer there. We are changed forever through this year.
And yet it's also the shift for many people into that earth consciousness, that awareness of what is so important as we connect with Mother Earth and all the creatures. Because we have had to be isolated, many people are reconnecting in a much bigger, broader, more expansive way with earth energy.
Right.
Yeah, beautiful.
Exactly. And so the earth people also, they can't stand scarcity. They would give away everything before they had anything for themselves. They take care of people spiritually, materially, and emotionally, and that's what the earth does. And so that's when people have gone inward and connected to Mother Gaia and connected to themselves, they realize that everything is supplied. Everything is there for us, materially, emotionally, and spiritually. But you have to connect. And so the fact that we've been stuck in our homes and that we've been isolated has forced many people to awaken and to go inward.
Absolutely.
And so now we are moving into 2021, which is a water year. So anyone who lives or was born with the last digit of a 1 or a 6, water is about moving into balance. Water has the capability to cool someone or something that's emotionally on fire. So water likes to keep things the way they are. They don't want the environment to be disturbed. They see the potential good in everyone. They show great understanding and are eager to make things work for the greater good. So the water person or year is about community, relationship, love, and harmony.
Beautiful. We could use that this year.
Exactly. So without water, nothing can be purified.
Nothing will grow.
Water is about cleansing, reconciliation, and balance. The water person perceives the world in terms of possibilities. So with water, there's grief. And grief comes from a widened gap that is possible to what is not possible. So when you're in that place of grief, you're not believing in yourself. And so the water, when you have too much water, water, it cleanses and washes away impurities of our failure. Grief is the enemy of denial. And when your world is out of balance or polluted, you can be in what's called deep water, where you feel like you're drowning.
Mm-hmm.
So there's, when you have too much water, you have little ambition. You're not in a hurry to go anywhere because you just can't even see the forest through the trees. You're just drowning. But there's also shallow water. So deep water is that mucky and murky, and then the shallow water is, I just need to cry today. I need to reach out. I need a hug. This is the purification.
And what about the tsunamis? And because water has incredible energy. Water is the most destructive of all energies. Really, when the tsunamis hit, they take out so much.
It's a cleansing. It's a clearing of everything.
Okay.
It's a cleansing and clearing. But and people can be in a tsunami place where it gets out of control. Mm-hmm. And so why the Daguerre, part of the shamanic work of the Daguerre tribe is they tell you when you're on fire, when you're like in that place of out of control fire, go to water. Or they'll tend to tell you go to nature. Mm-hmm. So all the healing takes place within these elements. So the last digit of 2 or 7 is someone who's fire. Mm-hmm. And they're the gatekeepers. They're the visionaries. But look at what happened. What happens is in shadow, it's like a giant forest fire that everything is just burning out of control. So each of these, have a lot. We don't have a lot of time to go. This was months of. But there's also nature people, which are 3 and 8, which is about the people who have the ability to manifest. And 4 and 9, which is the mineral, which is all about creativity, storytellers, and have a bone knowing of who they are.
And I'm an elemental or an element person with a 4, yeah. So storyteller, there we go.
The nature or the mineral.
The mineral. I'm sorry, a mineral, which is the storyteller. Yes, yeah. So thank you, Lisa. And in this next little bit, I know that you've been with me on this journey through the books that I've been asked to present, the messages from the books. Have you had a chance to look at, and especially book 2, were there any of the chapters or any of the guides that came through that particularly spoke to you, or that you would like to share your insights with others about?
I have to apologize because I was searching for it, because I literally turned my house upside down because I wanted to reread the chapters that we had discussed in it, and I couldn't find it anywhere. I think I loaned the book to someone.
Yes, that's entirely possible.
Oh my God! And I meant to tell you that because I wanted to review it.
Yeah, I know that you had the physical first book, and but the second book, I think that you probably only had the electronic version, the ebook version. But that's okay.
But I had the physical book because it had the green cover, right?
Oh yes, yeah.
Yes.
Oh wow, okay.
Yeah.
Well, did you have a thought as to the messages that came through? Because that's part of what's inspiring me is these amazing guides that are saying we need to get out there right now and help people through this period of time. There's so much hate and anger in our world, and we need to figure out how to help people through the anger. And that's one of the things that Aurora talks about, is to let go of the anger. And one way to do that is through forgiveness. So the Ho'oponopono prayer, through the act of seeing beyond, looking beyond the illusion, because you and I both work with clients, and until I start really delving into what's happened to them, on the surface, you really don't know what's happened to another person. They may present themselves one way, but once you start really seeing through their eyes, or just imagining walking a mile in their shoes, you don't really know what the pain that another person has gone through. So if we can can embark on this journey of staying in that higher level of consciousness. That's that 5D, elevating it to that place of being the observer and observing other people from a place of honesty and integrity, and just sending love, sending light, sending hope to other people, then we have the opportunity to collectively shift the energy of humanity, of this planet.
Absolutely, and you have been on this incredible mission of getting the word out, and it's important because we're all in the state of waking up and understanding. I remember the moment 20 years ago when I was sitting in a room and this woman was giving a talk about connecting to Source and connecting to Spirit, and that there are messages from loved ones and beings outside of ourselves that are guiding us. And I remember thinking to myself, what? What? That's a thing? Like, I can do that? And it changed my life forever. Mm-hmm. And for those people who have never experienced that, to be able to read your book and understand the messages, and that we are truly never alone, and that there are so many journeys that I have had in my life, and I know you have too, of getting messages and being guided, but you have to be open to it. You have to know that there is so much beyond us. When you stay within yourself and go just into your mind and thought and ego, we limit ourselves. And when we hear those messages of Spirit and of those great messengers that are guiding us right now and showing us how, because we can't do it alone. That's why we need to create community and being of service to others and help each other through these darkest times, not go into a place of hate and judgment and condemnation, because that doesn't serve anyone. Because I said early on in this conversation that when it gets down to it, we all want the same thing. We all want love. We all want peace. We all want prosperity and abundance for all of us. It's just that everyone has a different way to get there. And so when we judge others, we're really judging ourselves. Because as they say, as we point one finger outward to others, we're actually pointing three fingers back at ourselves.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And when we judge others, they're typically touching a wound in us that needs to be healed. When we have that sense of energy that we put toward some event or person, they are stimulating something. And as we embark on this journey of life as a process of how can I heal myself, how can I be better today than I was yesterday, that truly is one of the messages. Is the only person that you have to be better than today is the person you were yesterday. So we are not competing with one another. We should not be comparing ourselves to one another. We should just be looking at, how can I grow? How can I be a better person today? Because as you have expressed in the past, as we elevate our consciousness, as we are better today, as we learn and grow and increase our vibrational frequency, our vibrational energy, we touch and lift others around us, because we are a human collective. We are also joined by an unseen collective that is supporting and inspiring and helping us. And I know you've had a lot of journeys around the world, and that we don't have time to go into all of them. But would you mind to tell us a little bit of your story about the synchronistic connection that led you to go to Damayur?
Oh my God, do we have enough time?
Oh, we have just a few minutes, and
Okay.
yes, well, just the highlights. But you have that's such a fabulous story.
Okay, so I want to say about 3 or 4 years ago, I was in a relationship that devastated me, and I went into a place of deep despair and grief, and I was sobbing. And all of a sudden, I got this voice inside of me that said, "Be not afraid. I'm here to teach you courage, strength, and access to your own wisdom. I want you to see the world through my eyes. Don't worry, everything's going to be okay." And I was like, what was that? And I sat down, and I had just bought paints, and I painted what I was experiencing, and I saw this lion. And so I painted this beautiful lion with golden eyes, and I had this big disc with a heart on top of its head. And then I didn't think anything about that. I just put the painting aside. And earlier that year, I had signed up for a course at the Women's Herbal Conference of New England on Egyptian shamanism. And I walked into the room, and there was this woman, Nikki Scully, holding up her book, In the Belly of Sekhmet. Well, Sekhmet is an Egyptian goddess with a lioness head and a female body. And I showed her my painting, and it was identical to the photograph on the cover of her book. And she said to me, "Oh my goodness, you are channeling Sekhmet." And she said, "We have this retreat in 2 weeks, and we had one spot left, and we were waiting to see who was supposed to come, and it's free, and we want you to come." So I flew to Toronto and spent this weekend on working with Sekhmet, met a woman named Janice from Minnesota, Minneapolis, Minnesota, and I didn't think I'd ever see her again, but she told me about this amazing place she was going to and how she was studying at this spiritual university in Italy, and I thought, how amazing, but I never thought I'd see her again. 2 weeks after that, I was working with the twin shaman of Peru, and we were working on protection, and we had this bundle of herbs, and they asked us to give them a high-frequency name. So everyone around the room was giving a name, Jesus and Buddha and Mary, and I said Sekhmet, and everyone in the room turned around and stared at me. What's a Sekhmet? And one of the women who was facilitating described who she was as this great lioness warrior of the Egyptian gods. And she said, "I have one spot left. I need to talk to you. I'm going to Italy to this mystery school, and there's one spot left. Someone just canceled. I want you to come, and we're leaving in 2 weeks." I said, "I'm going through a horrific divorce. I don't know what to do. I don't have the money for this." And she said, "Okay, I'm going to leave this spot open for you, and if you change your mind, let me know." I said a prayer. If I meant to go, let the money appear. Mm-hmm. I got home, and there was a check in the mail from someone who had owed me money, and I had written it off thinking that I was never going to get that money. And it was a check for the exact amount of my trip.
That's amazing. The synchronicities.
The synchronicities were incredible, and there's more to the story, but I flew in, I arrived, and my roommate said to me, "Let me give you a tour of the campus." And I get there, and there's a giant statue of Sekhmet in the garden. And then I was walking around the campus, and I turned around, and I saw my friend who I met at the Sekhmet retreat, Janice from Minneapolis, was there with another group at the exact same time I was there.
So it's a perfect example of when you tap in, when you listen. And sometimes it comes to that dark night of the soul. This all started with you being down on your knees praying, right?
Yeah.
You were in that place of desperation. And when we are so far down, the only place to look is up. Yet we have to be open, and that's what you were. You were open to hearing the voice, hearing the message that came through, and then following the amazing journey that it took you on. And I'm going to have you come back, Lisa, and tell us more about the fascinating Dominator experience. But we have come to the end of our show today, so thank you so much for being here. And everyone, please, Lisa, one last thing. Tell everybody how they can find you quickly.
Lisa, Schermerhorncoaching.com, Schermerhorn. So it's Lisa Schermerhorn Coaching, and I have a LinkedIn, and I'm on Facebook as well.
And I'll put your address in the on the YouTube channel. So everyone that's listening, thank you for being here. Thank you, Lisa. And until next week, please look up, stay positive, and be the light in someone's day. God bless.